you need to understand something about warrants. A warrant is not supposed to be a permission slip for police to do what they already wanted to do. It is supposed to be a constitutional barrier between the citizen and the state. It exists because the Fourth Amendment does not trust the government to search first and explain later. Before police enter a residence, seize property, and point the weight of the government at private citizens, they are supposed to present a judge with truthful facts, complete context, and probable cause. Not suspicion, not dislike, not convenience. Probable cause. That is why this part of the reckless Ben case matters. American Fork Police later claimed that the owner of the Airbnb contacted them because he overheard Ben and his team talking about stolen Legos. They presented that as though it were suspicious, as though the phrase itself helped explain why police believed there was criminal activity inside that house. But that explanation depends on the audience not knowing the most important fact. Ben and his team were in American Fork because they were investigating stolen Legos. Of course, they were talking about stolen Legos. That was the subject of their investigation. When police take a statement that has an innocent explanation and remove that explanation, they are not merely gathering evidence. They are changing the meaning of the evidence. That is dangerous. The law does not allow officers to manufacture probable cause by stripping away context until an innocent fact looks guilty. A judge is supposed to evaluate the full picture, not a carefully cropped version of it. If the warrant depended on the phrase "stolen Legos," while leaving out that Ben and his team were there investigating stolen Lego theft, then the problem is not just sloppy police work. The problem is whether the judge was given a distorted story. Now look at the Airbnb owner. According to the public story from police, he was the person who supposedly heard the concerning conversation and contacted them. That version only works if he was an independent witness, a neutral property owner, someone with no special connection to the officers. But the Bodycam footage points towards something else. After the raid, an officer talks about the owner as his friend. He talks about recently going shooting with him, including shooting a desert eagle, and he says the owner is sitting nearby in his truck.
Remember when we did Hydra with the guy with the desert eagle?
Yeah.
This is his Airbnb. He's in my truck right
now.
Really? And that's small.
Oh, yeah.
And I told Bevo that. He was like, what the fuck? That's so funny. Detectives are going to have Orem come and look at these guys to see, because they have video surveillance of all their guys. So we'll keep them on ice until we can start stripping resources. But it sounds like the other shifts rolled in. They're starting to take calls.
They're starting to take calls, which is good.
Okay.
We'll make sure everything's cleared up.
Yeah, it was great. And the fact that they were coming out when we were walking up. The main kid had his phone recording, so I shut it off. But
the other kid had a GoPro. We're out of here.
AK-47, code 4.
Just gonna give him this copy of the warrant, tell him how it went. Or these douchebags probably have property. Oops. Shouldn't have said that.
That relationship matters. It matters under common sense, and it matters under the law. A witness who is personally connected to an officer is not automatically lying, but that relationship can affect credibility, motive, and the way the statement was produced. If police relied on the Airbnb owner to help establish probable cause, then the relationship between that owner and the officer was not some harmless detail. It was part of the reliability question. A judge deciding whether to authorize a search would have a reason to know whether the concerned property owner was also the officer's friend. The darker possibility is not simply that the owner misunderstood what he heard. The darker possibility is that police already wanted a warrant, knew the owner personally, and used that relationship to get the statement they needed. That is not a tip leading to an investigation. That is an investigation looking for a path into a house. If an officer can turn to a friend, shape a statement around an innocent conversation, and use that statement to open the door to a raid, then probable cause has been replaced by manufactured cause. That is where the case becomes dangerous. Police do not always need to invent a story out of nothing. Sometimes all they need to do is take a true detail, remove the innocent explanation, place it in the mouth of someone who looks like a concerned witness, and hand it to a judge as though it means something sinister. Then the warrant does the rest. The raid becomes legal on paper because the paper was built around a distorted version of reality. The law has a name for this kind of problem. When police include false information in a warrant affidavit or omit facts that would seriously undermine probable cause, the warrant can be attacked. Courts do not give officers permission to mislead judges by commission or omission. If the missing context would have changed the probable cause analysis, then the omission matters. If the relationship with the witness would have affected how the judge viewed the statement, then the omission matters. If the police turned an innocent discussion about an investigation into evidence of criminal activity, then every word in that affidavit deserves scrutiny. Then there is the officer's own mouth. After the raid, he refers to Ben and his friends as douchebags, then catches himself and says, "Oops, I should not have said that." He was right to catch himself, but the damage was already done. That was not professionalism. That was contempt leaking through the uniform. It suggests the officers had already decided what kind of people they were dealing with. That matters, because contempt is not evidence. Dislike is not probable cause. A badge does not transform bias into truth. The missing bodycam footage matters for the same reason. When the government uses force, the record matters. When police claim they had lawful grounds for a raid, the record matters. When an officer is connected to the witness who helped justify the warrant, the record matters even more. Every gap becomes important. Every missing angle becomes important. Every offhand comment becomes important, because the public is being asked to trust the same people whose conduct is now in question. This is not about whether stolen Legos are a serious crime. Theft is a crime. Fraud is a crime. But investigating theft isn't theft. Talking about stolen property while investigating stolen property is not probable cause. Being unpopular with police isn't probable cause. Being called names by officers after the raid isn't probable cause. The Constitution doesn't disappear because the case sounds strange or because the property involved happens to be toys. So when American Fork Police say the Airbnb owner overheard Ben and his team talking about stolen Legos, do not stop there. Ask whether police told the judge why Ben and his team were in town. Ask whether they disclosed that the owner had a personal relationship with an officer. Ask whether the statement was spontaneous or whether police helped shape it. Ask whether the warrant showed the full truth or only the part that made the raid easier to justify. Because the real danger is not that police made a mistake. Mistakes happen. The real danger is that police may have known exactly what they needed and found a friendly witness who could help them say it. That is how the machinery of government gets turned against people. Not with a confession. Not with hard evidence. With a phrase taken out of context, a friend in a truck, a judge given a narrow story, and a door opened under color of law. I know criminals. I know corruption. I know what it looks like when power searches for a legal mask. If the facts are what they appear to be, then this was not a clean warrant built from independent evidence. This was suspicion dressed as probable cause. It was personal connection dressed as a citizen tip. It was context removed until innocence looked like guilt. That is not justice. That is not law enforcement. That is the state using shadows to enter a room it had no right to enter. And when the government does that, the question is no longer whether Ben and his team were talking about stolen Legos. The question is whether American Fork Police used the law or whether they bent it until it pointed where they wanted. Criminals hide in the dark because they fear what the light will reveal. But when the government starts hiding there too, I stop looking for suspects and start hunting for the truth, brick by brick.